So the film now, which best exemplifies Miller's priorities and curiosities amongst his narrative oeuvre, is 3,000 Years of Longing, adapted from a short story by A.S. Byatt. Miller was evidently so taken by this text that he, co-writing a script with Augusta Gore, decided to compose it prior to the release of the much-anticipated follow-ups to Fury Road, and despite this film not containing a premise which lends itself to aspirations of commercial profit, the film's emphasis on narrative cycles, myths, repetition, and rediscovering old spectral truths within the imperious realism of the material flesh and blood stone reality is the work which, almost consciously, most ties Miller's filmmaking oeuvre into a cohesive set of Jungian sequences. Also, from a standpoint of film production, of summoning fantasy incursions among recognizable, tangible realism, Miller's philosophy is overt, and his efforts concerning computer graphics, the digital epoch, the most impressive of any legacy filmmaker, at least within the genre/fantasy tree, based upon 3,000 Years and also, of course, the Fury Road/Furiosa duology. I felt as though Lucas's handling was a touch awkward. All of us do, I feel. Cameron's is improving based upon Way of Water, but has a long way to go. Animators tend to have a better time with realizing the truest potential of digital graphics, and Miller having helmed the two Happy Feet features, the first one at least, being nothing to scoff at, it was highly impactful to 10-year-old AOD, seriously, had a better understanding for it. As early as the 1990s, Miller, inspired by Otomo's Akira feature, wanted Mad Max 4, at one time, to be an animated project. The only vague fault I would identify within 3,000 Years at all is the narratives culminating in the romance between the two lead players felt thematically appropriate but dramatically forced, rushed, distracting, though also acceptable. I wish the film spent even more of its runtime on this segment, balancing out the first half of the film being the free flashbacks, the second half could be set entirely in the present. It would make for a feature over 2 hours in length, but I would be thoroughly okay with this movie having a lengthier runtime in most instances, truly. The screenplay spells out their union as a series of statements within one of the old lyrical legends, the likes of classic Arabian fables, oriental poetic melancholy, and the mischievous Borgesian recreations, the likes of which Byatt herself might be counted amongst. As literature, this is not questioned by the reader. As cinema, its employment of the screening space's temporal dimension, that is, its particular pacing, feels psychologically distracting. We try to reconcile the importance and brevity of that moment versus its seemingly brisk pace compared to the prior narrative unfoldings, at least where the present day conversation was concerned, and not the flashbacks themselves. But this is the only minute distracting point in an otherwise immersive odyssey, a distraction which is entirely forgotten by the film's emotionally animating conclusion. Some recent feature films of a more film festival or art house or Oscar season disposition have been employing computer graphics for the sake of realizing fantastical or certainly magical realist displays within their otherwise historical or contemporary dramatic statements. 2012's Beasts of the Southern Wild was ahead of the times. 2023's Poor Things has been the more celebrated recent example, a pretty fine film, far be it from me to say much negative about the compelling Mr. Lanthimos. Though the best instance, despite it having a generally mediated though strong critical response, not a box office hit, as predictable as it is a serious shame, the reviews for 3,000 Years were positive, but the net appraisal was not particularly loud either. 3,000 Years of Longing is one of Miller's finer or finest works, a major accomplishment in 2020's English language filmmaking thus far, or of any language. If you are yet to see this film, I have spoiled it for you, though I imagine you might want to see more of this film's stellar cinematographic and computer animation aesthetic. Also, Amito Lagom is immediately one of the most beautiful actresses to ever appear in a film. Any historical Queen of Sheba can't have been as beautiful as Lagom is. I don't mean to be disrespectful, I'm just in awe. Anyone would be. I don't think that this film bests Sokharov's Fairy Tale as my favourite picture of 2022, although it could best the fantasy efforts of Cameron's The Way of Water, and also the uber-modern digital realism of Field's Tar. Thoroughly impressive though that is not enough for me to champion Tar over the passionate distillation of our Logos mythological knots, the techno-aesthetic fluidity, the fusion of two disparate worlds, live action and computer animated, worlds so seamlessly tied together one forgets it might be entirely innovative, of Miller's 3,000 Years of Longing. Do check it out. Thanks again, everyone.